Shalom, friends. This is Eliyahu Shir from Chesed Ve'emet, my site www.lovingkindness.co. Welcome to another shiur in Tanya. We're learning at the moment chapter 6 of Tanya, and you're welcome to follow along with me using your own copy, or please find a copy online. There are numerous copies online. You're welcome to make use of one of the copies over there. Now, chapter 6 deals with the concept of the animal soul, the Nefesh HaBahamis. And we said that the animal soul, it corresponds to the godly soul in that it also has 10 faculties to it, and it has 3 garments. And we said that basically what differentiates the animal soul to the godly soul is that whereas the garments of the godly soul lift up the godly soul, the garments of the animal soul bring the animal soul to a lower level. And then we discussed basically one of the issues of the animal soul being a problem. And that is the fact that what makes it difficult to work with is that it behaves like a young child, like an immature child. And just as an immature child becomes upset over the silliest of things and becomes very angry about these things, so too our animal souls trick us into thinking about certain things in that same way. And as a result of our immature thinking, we become angry easily or jealous easily or various other bad attributes very easily, like a child would have. This is the behavior of the animal soul. And actually, we're up to the words which begin that say, the Eser Bechinot Elu Hatameos. Now, these 10 aspects which are impure, that's what we're speaking about now, the faculties of the animal soul, which have 10 aspects which are impure. Adam machshev bahem, or medaber, or oseh. When a person thinks using these 10 attributes, or he speaks, or he does things using the 10 attributes, hare machashavto shebamocho v'diboro. His thoughts in his mind and his speech shebapiv, in his mouth, v'koach ha'maaseh shebiyadav, and the action of the strength of the action, what he's involved in doing in his hands, usha'ar Aveirot, and with all the other limbs of his body, nikraim levushei misa'avu le'eser bechinos elu hatameos. They are called by the term of garments which are impure to the 10 aspects of these levels of impurity. So this is what's happening now. We're using our 10 levels of the animal soul to bring in further impurity within these 10 aspects. What happens? And what happens is these 10 aspects becoming clothed within them at the time of the action that he's involved in, or dibur, or his speech, or machshava, or his thought. This is what he's doing with himself at this point in time, is he's using all of these 10 faculties of his animal soul in order to engage in negative behavior through his thought, speech, and action. And these are all the actions of what we do underneath the sun, which means to say this refers to the general behavior of activities that we involve ourselves in the physical world, which means to say there are 2 ways of doing things in the world. One way is godly, and the other way is the general way of the world. Godly things are things that relate to prayer and Torah study, charity, good deeds, and so on and so forth. Whereas all other things that we involve ourselves in, for example, eating and drinking, being dressed, having a bath, and all different activities that we involve our physical body in, this relates to things of the animal soul. Asher hakol hevel u'us ruach, that everything is really just vanity and really just a badness of the spirit. And as it's written there in the Zohar in Parshas Beshalach, That basically what they are a breakage of the spirit. All the physical things that we involve ourselves in is a breaking of our real souls that rest inside our bodies. V'chein, and likewise, kol hadiburim v'chol hamachshavos, all of our speech and all of our thoughts, asher lo laHashem hema, these things that we do that are not towards God, uleritzoinoi v'la'avodaso, and that are tuned in, that are directed towards God's will and towards His service, shezehu perush lashon Sitra Achra, that this is the explanation of the words that we say, the Sitra Achra, the other side. Remember, we said that the other side refers to the aspect of the godliness which is hidden so that we don't see that there is godliness there, which means there is an aspect of evil. Pirush, which means to say, tzad acher, it's another side, which means to say it's not directed towards godliness. She'eno tzad hakedusha, this is not the side of holiness. The tzad hakedusha, now the side of holiness, eino ela hashra'a v'hamshacha mikdusha so shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When we speak about holiness, we speak about that is the indwelling and the drawing down of the holiness of the Holy One, blessed is He. Ve'ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu shore ela al davar shebatal etzlo yisparach. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu only dwells in something that is nullified towards Him. Bein bepoel mamash, whether we do it actively, malachim elyonim, like the angels do, which means to say that when we engage in doing something that is related to holiness, then at that point in time, godliness dwells upon us. The angels, of course, are constantly connected to God in a natural manner, which means automatically, whatever the angel is involved in, he is connected with God. Unlike ourselves, ubein bakoach, who exist in the aspect of potential, kechol aish Yisrael lemata, like every single Jewish person in this world below. Shebakoicho lihiyos batel mamash, that a Jew has within him the potential to be completely nullified to God, legabe HaKadosh Baruch Hu, towards God, the Mesirat Nefesh, with a complete giving over, with a complete sanctification of his soul, giving over, a surrendering of himself, al kedushas Hashem, for the holiness of God. Later on, we're going to learn in Tanya that every single Jew has this innate ability to completely surrender himself to godliness. When does this happen? This happens at a time, for example, when a Jew is faced with a test. God forbid, the person has to be faced with such a test, whereby he has to give himself up in order not to commit certain Aveirot. For example, idolatry, murder, and adultery, sexual immorality. Meaning to say, if a Jew is faced with a test of either bowing down to an idol, or, for example, murdering another person, or, for example, committing sexual immorality, or instead of doing that, the person threatens this Jew with death, it is the correct thing to go in a direction of self-sacrifice towards God and to give up one's own life instead of committing this particular Aveirah. So strong is the Torah with these three sins that a Jew should forfeit his life rather than commit these particular sins. Now, if a Jew has within him the potential to break away and to allow himself to be killed instead of committing his Aveirahs, then the truth of the matter is that he also has within him the potential to be like that with every single other Aveirah that he shouldn't come to do it. In other words, faced with any other Aveirah, it should be easy for a Jew not to commit the Aveirah rather than to commit the Aveirah, because that is far lighter than these three Aveirahs for which a Jew must really give up his life. But the truth of the matter is, if a Jew is able to give up his life for these three Aveirahs, he should be able to think in the same way when it comes to all Aveirahs against God. And he should find the strength to be able to hold himself back in order that he doesn't come to commit any Aveirot, which means to say that a Jew has within him the potential that he can give up himself completely to God rather than commit the Aveirot. He can become at that point in time like a malach, like an angel of God, and he can be so connected with God that he chooses rather to give himself up completely rather than commit the Aveirot. Therefore, he has within him the potential to be like a malach. He has the potential, even if it's only in potential. Every single Jewish person has within him this great potential to surrender himself, to sanctify God's name. And therefore, Amru Rabboseinu Zal, our rabbis say, even if one person is involved in occupying himself, he's sitting down and he's studying Torah, Shechinah Shruya, that the Shechinah dwells with him, which means to say that the moment that a Jew is involved in the study of Torah, the Shechinah dwells with him, invests itself within the Jew, and brings holiness to this Jew. For Kol Be'asara, and everywhere where there are 10 Jews, Shechinah Sharia Le'olam, the Shechinah dwells at that point always, which means to say that when there are 10 Jews gathered for any purpose, even if they're just sitting around and they're just talking general, the Shechinah dwells with them. But anything that does not nullify itself towards Hashem, but it considers itself to be something that is separated from God. It considers itself to be a separate entity. One of the amazing things of creation is that God has created us in such a way that we think of ourselves as being separate from God. But this is not true. We are connected to God at all times. When we think Torah, when we speak Torah, when we do actions of goodness and kindness, the mitzvot of the Torah, we show how connected we are to the Torah and to godliness in action. However, it is also possible for a person to take on the role as if he is separate from God, because we have been created with a human body, and as a result of that, we tend to think of ourselves as being separated from God. In that case, if a person sees himself as separate, and he removes himself from the Torah and the mitzvahs, then a person will no longer receive the life force from the holiness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which means to say that we have to think like this. At the end of the day, God is giving nourishment, life, light, and force to each one of us at all times of the day. When, however, a person is engaged in holiness, he is actively involved in connecting himself with God in a way that he will begin to feel and experience the godliness that is to be found upon him. However, if a Jew does not behave in this way, but rather makes himself out as if he is separate from God, God will still nourish him. God will still take care of him. But instead of taking care of him in a manner whereby it is visible, as if God is really present in the person's life, the energy and the force and the power and the life that comes to the person comes to him through a way of all the tzimtzumim, through all the contractions that have existed since the beginning of creation. God has created a system of tzimtzumim whereby he begins to release his light into existence through numerous worlds, through the worlds starting at Adam Kadmon, moving to Atzilut, Bria, Yetzirah, Asiyah, and to the physical world of Asiyah. Each one of us is sustained through godly force as it comes through all of these contractions in such a way that so often we cannot even imagine that the force that is coming to us actually has a divine source to it. So therefore, when a person is involved in the Torah and mitzvahs, he will experience and he will feel that he is connecting with God. On the other hand, when a person is not involved in these things, and instead he does not surrender himself to God, the life force that he experiences will still come to him from God. However, they will no longer be perceivable as coming from God. Instead, we will imagine that we are the people involved in sustaining ourselves. when we eat, when we drink, when we do all the things that we have to do, we will imagine incorrectly that through our activities, it is ourselves who are sustaining ourselves. And therefore, we will not receive this holiness and this giving from God, from the aspect of the internal part of the holiness, umahusa va'atzmusa, and through the existence and the very essence, bikvoida va'atzma, through the honor, through God's glory, and through the essence of God. Everything will come in a way like as if it is from the back. Whenever the Torah speaks about this idea, when the Tanya speaks about this idea, when the Kabbalah speaks about the idea that we receive our force through the Achorayim, this means through the back hinder part of godliness, which means to say it is given to us in a way that is not given with pleasure. In other words, we receive the force, we receive this life, this gift, but we don't experience it as if God is there, and God gives it to us in a way that we can't even imagine that He is the one who is bestowing it upon us. Let us give an example of this. Let us take an example of a person who goes to court and he is found to be guilty, and he is required to pay the winning party. He's required to pay them a sum of money. So he writes out the check and he gives it to this person. As he has lost the case, he must give it to the winner of the case. When he gives it to him, he does not smile. He does not give it to him with an outstretched arm as if to say, please take this item from me. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it. Instead, he writes out the check quickly and swiftly. He slams it on the table and he lets the person take it for himself. Or better yet, he throws it all together behind his back, over his shoulder, and he tells the person, if you want the check, pick it up yourself. There it says the figure of money that you wanted. It's yours. Take it and go. There are also such instances, as we know, those people who have seen certain videos that sometimes show up on YouTube of people who, for example, become very upset that they received a fine from a particular governmental agency for doing something wrong, and they're required to pay a certain amount of money. So instead of walking into the office and they give them the money that is due because of the fine that they have to pay, they specifically go to the bank and they get all of this money changed into small amounts, into 20-cent pieces, into 50-cent pieces, whatever it is, 10-cent pieces, and they pay off the penalty that they're required to pay with the small money. They dump this thing onto the table and they say, you want your money? Here is your money. This is what is called giving, according to this, mibekinas achorayim, from the backside. When a person says, you want your penalty, you think that I was liable for something, that I'll give you whatever it is that you feel that you're due, but when I give it to you, it won't come with blessing. It won't come with life. It won't come with a smile on my face. It won't come with me looking at you and saying, here is the thing that I really want to give you. So too, when we are engaged in the activities that we are supposed to be engaged in, when God gives to us, the bestowal of the blessing comes with God turning towards us in a way of kindness and happiness. It comes from the panim of Hashem. It comes from God's very face, the face side, the front side of God, with blessing, with happiness. However, if a person is not engaged in connecting with God, he too will receive his nourishment from God, because everything ultimately gets its nourishment from God. It doesn't just come to him of its own accord. It doesn't come to him from the food that he's eating. It comes from him from the energy and the power invested in the food to give life to the person. And therefore, when God gives to this person, because the person has turned themselves away from God, then when God gives to him, the giving is done in a backhanded manner. And therefore, when the person receives whatever it is that he receives, he imagines that it hasn't even come from a godly being. He can become an atheist. He can imagine that there's no God because he believes that he worked for whatever it is that he has, and that the things were given to him because he himself achieved it, not realizing that God is behind the giving. God is behind making sure that this person has. These are the concepts of the danger of what the animal soul can do to us. That when we're involved in activities that go against godliness, God will still continue to give. And that is how we continue to sustain ourselves. However, The giving that comes to us is in a backhanded manner. God throws it over his shoulder, so to speak, in order to give to this person. And all of this blessing, this flow of abundance that comes to a person, comes down from level to level. Rivavos madregos, from many, many levels, one to the next. Through all of the contractions and the chain-like effects and events of all the worlds as they come down from one level to the next. Derech illa va'alul, in a way of cause and effect. In other words, it's like a chain-like event. And what's happening is the chain is connected one part to the other in a way that ultimately the flow of blessing goes from one level higher to the level lower to the level lower. That by the time it reaches the lowest level, the person who is accepting it doesn't even realize from where it has come. Where is the original source that it came from? V'tzimtzumim rabim, and it comes from many, many contractions. Smaller and smaller and smaller. This abundance of goodness becomes smaller and smaller until eventually it reaches the person. Until it becomes so small. Ha'or, the light, v'achios, and this life force, mi'ut acha mi'ut, one level lower than the next. Until eventually it can be constricted and contracted, and it can become enclosed in an aspect of exile, which means to say that nobody even knows where it's coming from, because the blessing exists in a way of complete exile. Nobody knows where it's coming from. Into that very thing which has separated itself from God. To give it life and to give it existence, from something that is nothing to something that is something. In order that it will not return, lios ein ve'efes, so that it shouldn't turn back to be nothing, null and void, kebatchila mikodem shenivra, as it was before it was coming into existence. V'lachen, and therefore, nikra olam hazeh, this world that we're speaking about, is called umilo'o, and this world and its fullness is called Olam HaKlipot. It's called the world of the shells, the world of the peels, the world of the husks, the Sitra Achra, and the other side. Why is this world called that? Because ultimately everything that is bestowed into this world comes, for the most part, in a way that none of us can really realize that God is there. Which means to say, wherever we look, we imagine that things exist in a state of separateness as they are. We barely imagine that there is a God behind all these things, giving it sustenance, giving it life. This is the world of the Kelipot. It's the world of the shells and the husks that are concealing godliness. Ultimately, all of everything that exists is coming about through the word of God. Everything is coming about from the flow of abundance that God bestows upon all of creation. However, because it comes into the world through numerous contractions in a way that we can't understand, that the highest levels of spirituality, even beyond spirituality, the blessings that exist beyond that, start becoming physical until eventually they manifest themselves into a stone. And we look at the stone and we imagine that within the stone there is nothing but a hard thing, a hard physical object. And we don't realize that in order for there to be a stone, there must be a godly force that is inside the stone, giving it life. When we cannot see the godly force, we are looking at a world of Kelipot, of Sitra Achra, a world of the husks, a world of shells and peels, and we cannot see the fruit inside it. This is the world of physicality, the dangers also of the animal soul. And therefore, Kol ma'aseh olam hazeh, all of the things that happen in this world, kashim v'ra'im, they are bad and they are hard and bad. V'harisha'im govrim bo, and it's the evil who prevail over it. Kamoshe Kasuv, as it's written by Eitz Chaim in the great Kabbalistic work written by Rabbi Chaim Bittul, teaching the teachings of his teacher, the Arizal, And he says over there that this is a world that is filled with klipot and evil. And it says over there in Shamim Bay Sof Perek Dalet. Let's look at the notes now that the Alter Rebbe brings down. Even though inside all of these klipot, as we discussed before, it's like taking a banana. You've got the peel and you've got the fruit inside. You've got a coconut. You've got this hard outer shell, and within it, you've got the coconut fruit inside it. It's very tasty. As long as you can get rid of the kelipah, you can see that inside the fruit is something very tasty. You just got to peel off the peel, and you'll see how beautiful the fruit is inside. Now, even though it is that we see the kelipah, we see the hard stone, we see the plant, which seems to have a life of its own. We see the animal, which seems to have a life force of its own. Or we see a human being, and we seem to think that the human being is just whoever it is. We think that that's what it is. But nevertheless, inside it, with inside this kelipah, something that looks so negative, we find within it that there are 10 sefirot of the world of Asiya in the holy realm. As it's brought down in the Eitz Chaim over there as well. And if you go deeper within the 10 sefirot of the world of Asiya, one will find that there are 10 sefirot sitting there in the world of Yetzirah. We're peeling back all of the peels. And inside of them are the 10 sefirot of the world of Bria. We're going deeper and deeper into the spiritual worlds. And inside the 10 sefirot of the world of Bria, we get into a deeper level where there's a higher level of spirituality. And there we find the 10 sefirot of the world of Atzilot, the highest world. And within those 10 sefirot of Atzilot, Ohr Ein Sof Baruch Hu, there is the light of the Infinite One. Blessed is He. Which means what? The light of the Infinite One is shining into those 10 sefirot in the world of Atzilot, which then goes through some timtumim, contractions, and enters into the world of Bria and the 10 sefirot of Bria. And then there's timtumim rabim, all sorts of contractions entering into the 10 sefirot of the world of Yetzirah. And then again timtumim until the world of Asiya. And then timtumim until eventually we find ourselves into the physical world, where we imagine that everything is separate. Everything has its own life force. But the reality is that behind all of that life force that we're speaking about is the godly force that is invested right there at the very, very innermost point, giving life to this very thing, even to a hard stone. V'nimtza, and consequently we find, Ohr Ein Sof Baruch Hu, Malei Kol Haaretz Halazo, that the light of Hashem is filling all of the world, all of this world, Hatachtona, this entire world down below here. Al Yedei Hislabshuso, through means of clothing himself. Be'eses Sefirot, the Arba Olamot, through all of the 10 Sefirot of the 4 worlds. Atzilot, Bria, Yetzirah, Asiya, through all of these 4 worlds, spiritual worlds, until we find ourselves in the physical world itself. K'moshe Kasuv, as it is written, Be'etz Chayim, in the Eitz Chayim, Sha'ar Mem Zayin, Perik Beit. U'Besefer Gugulim, Perik Chaf, and it's also brought down there in the Sefer Gugulim. Of course, because this relates to the idea of Gilgulim and how a person can be reincarnated into various different elements of creation. And we should know that ultimately all elements of creation contain within them this divine spark. And now we continue. Ela, but rather, Kelipot, Hein Niklakot Lishtei Madregot, Zo Lemata Mizo. That the Kelipot are divided into 2 different levels. One which is below the other. Hamadrega hatachtoina, the lowest level. He shalosh klipot hatameis v'raos legamre. The lowest level of all of these klipot, of these peels, refers to the three completely impure klipot, completely evil. Ve'ein bahem tov klal. And there is no good whatsoever in these levels, in these three klipot that we've spoken about before. What exactly are these three klipot? We described before that there are certain things in the world that no matter what we do, we can never make them pure. We can never sanctify them. We can never turn them into purity. For example, if a person says as a Jew that he's going to eat, he has pork in front of him, and he says to himself, I will shecht the pig in a kosher manner, and I will drain its blood in accordance with the laws of removing the blood of the animal, not to eat the blood of an animal, and I will make a blessing on the pig. And thereafter, I will make a blessing afterwards, and I will even use the energy that I gain from the pig in order to perform all sorts of mitzvot. I will help other people, and I will give charity with this energy, because after all, the animal, the pig, is going to give energy to the physical body, and a person will use that energy for good things, so to speak. He will run out and he will help people and he will do all sorts of good things. But nevertheless, the pig itself is one of these levels of the klipot, which is completely evil. And therefore, no matter how much we try to sanctify it, even if we eat it and we use this energy to do good, we will never be able to uplift the evil that is inherent within the pig that has been placed into our bodies. Now, we're not coming to say in a physical aspect to imagine that pork, for example, is something that is evil. What we want to say is that ultimately, when we eat the pork, which is forbidden to us from the Torah, because God says so, we bring that into our system, and God says to us that the spirituality contained within that is evil and will cause us to do even worse as a result of that. Now, these three klipot that we're speaking about, these totally evil klipot, are v'nikra'u b'markevet Yechezkel. They are called in the chariot of Yechezkel. Now, Yechezkel Hanavi had a divine vision. He saw the Merkava. He saw the chariot of God. What does that mean? He saw the manner in which God operates and functions and causes the world to be as it is. And as he began his ascent into the heavens in a spiritual state of meditation, he first encountered a number of evil husks before he went through into this level of deep meditation, entering into the higher celestial planes of purity and godliness. And what were these three levels exactly? They were Ruach Sa'ara, there was this strong wind, stormy wind, V'anan Gadol, and then there was a great cloud, and then there was fire. And after the fire, we know that there was a still voice. And then Yechezkel entered into the Merkava, which means to say that before a person enters into these high levels of meditation, he must encounter these three impure forces before he is able to enter into the levels of these high levels of meditation. Now, these three klipot that Yechezkel is speaking to us about are the three levels of impurity that exist within the world. Umehen, and from these three levels, nishpaot v'nimshachot nefashos kol umas ha'olam. The Alter Rebbe tells us that all of the souls of the nations of the world come through from these three levels, v'kiyum gufam, and these are the sustaining forces of their bodies. V'kiyum v'chiyus kol ma'achalos asuros me'atumeach, and the existence, it also gives the existence and life force to all of the foods that are prohibited from, for example, vegetation, k'mo orla v'kilai hakerem, for example, the forbidden food of the orla, which is third-year fruits, and kilai hakerem, which are forbidden mixtures of various fruits that are planted together, which may not be eaten, or may not be planted in the first instance, I should say. As is brought down in the Eitz Chaim, Shar Mem Tet Perek Vav, in the Eitz Chaim over there, in Shar Mem Tet Perek Vav, it discusses these ideas that these are things in creation which we may not touch. And the reason we may not touch them or eat them or fiddle around with them and do certain things with them is because they exist in the realm of the kelipah. They exist in the realm of the husk of impurity. And therefore, no matter what we do to it, we can never purify it, we can never uplift it, we can never make it any greater. These are the three forces of the Kelipot. V'chein, and likewise, kiyum v'chiyos kol ha'maaseh dibur u'machshava, the existence of all life force, of all action, of speech and thought, shall kol shesa lo ta'aseh, of all the 365 negative commandments, v'anfehim, and all of their branches, as it's brought over there at the end of the chapter 5. So we see over there basically that what we're learning about here is that we have these three Kelipot, which are impure. And no matter what we do, we can never purify them. But we've been learning about the animal soul. And the animal soul, what makes it different from these Kelipot, is that the animal soul comes from the level of the kelipah Nogah, of this translucent light, of this glowing light, which means to say that we have the potential within it to either take it up to a higher level or to bring it down to a lower level. This is the difference between the animal soul that we have, that we can make something of it, or things that exist within a realm that no matter what we do with, we can never lift it up to a higher level. So at this point in time, what we've discussed now is that we have a godly soul, and the godly soul has 10 faculties, and it also has 3 garments that surround it. These are the garments of thought, speech, and action. When we engage our thought, speech, and action in good matters, meaning godly matters, and we use the godly soul the correct way, we use all of these 10 faculties and we uplift the godly soul to a higher level. On the other hand, we have within us a corresponding spiritual man, which is the animal soul. And it too has 10 faculties to it, meaning the 3 higher faculties called the mochin, the intellect, the chabad, the chokhmah, bina, and da'as, which help us to think, and the lower 7 sefirot, the midot, the emotions. And these are the aspects of the chesed, gevurah, tiferet, netzach, hod, yesod, and the malchus. And we have 3 garments that surround all of these 10 faculties of thought, speech, and action. And when we engage our thought, speech, and action in negative things against Hashem, against the commandments of God, we then use that animal soul to bring ourselves down to a much lower level. We're going to stop our shiur for today. I thank you for joining me. This is our lesson in Tanya. We've actually ended off chapter 6, and I hope that you've enjoyed this shiur. If you have enjoyed it, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Please click on the bell to be notified of future shiurim as they come out. And do check out my site, www.lovingkindness.co. Please do become a member and an active participant in the activities that we're involved in. In the meantime, I'm Eliyahu Shir, www.lovingkindness.co. And I look forward to another shiur with you. And I look forward to being in touch. Please contact me via my site, and I'd be delighted to be in touch with you. Until our next shiur, I wish you everything of the best. Shalom, shalom. Bye-bye.